Hi, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Reroute Reflections. I think this is episode number 9. Today's guest is Sean Speake, a learning and development leader with deep experience across instructional design, facilitation, e-learning development, and learning consulting. Sean is known for taking a very practical, solutions-based rather than activities-based approach to workplace learning. Sean and I had the privilege of working together and a lot of fun working together at the Bank of Montreal earlier in our careers. And one of the things that always stood out to me was his ability to pause before jumping straight into training as the answer. It was a fundamental shift in how I thought about learning, working with Sean. Instead, he always focused on understanding the real problem teams were facing or trying to solve and bringing a strategic lens to solving the complex problems that we're facing, which, as everyone knows that's listening, that is right up my wheelhouse. Trying to simplify things, deliver it into chunks. And so we got along real well. Sean, honestly, it's such a pleasure to have you. Welcome to Reroute Reflections. And why don't you give the audience just an introduction about yourself?
Well, thank you for having me, Andrew. It's a pleasure to see you again and to get to have this conversation with you. I've been working in L&D in some capacity, either officially or unofficially, for like I guess since the turn of the century, if we want to use that as a measure. I've got a passion for learning. I've been a lifelong learner. I'm a deeply curious human being. I always want to understand how stuff works and take it apart and see what makes it tick. And I love solving problems. But like you were saying, you got to make sure you're solving the right problem. In learning, there's very much it's kind of a black box for a lot of people. You put content in and learning comes out and they don't quite understand what happens inside there. So for me, it's always about let's make sure we're solving the right problem. It's causes, not symptoms. It's having those deep discussions around, what is making this happen? What's our root cause analysis? All of that sort of stuff. There's a lot of overlap between learning and change management, behavior change and comms, communications and all of that sort of stuff. They're very, very similar disciplines. So we often work really closely together. And that's how you and I connected. And I think that it's that deep curiosity, the understanding and asking questions and not being afraid to ask questions. I have an unfortunate lack of self-preservation sometimes when it comes to asking questions about that. I also call it the toddler muscle. Just ask why. If you haven't asked why 5 times, you haven't asked why enough yet. So it's super, super important to me that we're solving the right problem and not just, slapping a band-aid on a sucking chest wound. Sorry, you're gonna see, like I'm sure you remember, I speak a lot by metaphor and by
No, I
examples,
love
and
it.
some of those examples are very graphic. I will try to manage myself as best I can, but if you're in
That's
the
okay.
ER and you've got a patient who comes in and the problem is they've got super low blood pressure because they've got no blood in them, your first question should not be, or your first thought, your solution should not be, let's put more blood in them. It should be, why do they not have blood in them right now?
Right, right. I love that analogy because it speaks so much to all of the things from because I feel like change management it always is kind of like a blanket.
Mm.
They always kind of see change management being okay, you got to be good at learning, you got to be good at comms, or if there's a change that's happening, it's like we just got to train them. There's something that's happening, just train them. And it's like, how do we do it? It's like, well, just invite them to a session a week before it launches to go over what's changing, and that should be good enough without the like strategic lens of, well, one is training really going to help, bridge the gap. And it's the same thing we get with communications too. It's like,
Yep.
well, we got to change, we just got to send a communication out, right? And it's there's so much more into that, and there's so much strategy that goes around it. And one of the things that I've been starting to see change, but very slowly, is the recognition from clients and organizations that each of these disciplines is a unique skill set that requires professionals that really fundamentally understand learning as a discipline and understanding communications as a discipline. I can't do that very well. Like, I'm going to be honest with you. Like, it's not. yeah, like I can fake it, like I can go through it. I've seen enough communications, I've seen enough training, but to actually get the full value that you can get from training individuals, it's a whole, subject area in and of itself. I remember when you guys were leading kind of the learning team, and we were working with you from the change and strategy side. I remember the process you guys did was a needs-based assessment that you walked people through. If you remember that, right? I'm
Yep,
sure, and
we're still
I
doing it.
remember, I'm bet, right? And I remember that process. And I'm like, oh my God, like this is so much more intricate than I ever thought. But it's like, you going slow to go fast,
Yep.
right? And I don't know if you want to maybe kind of talk a little
Uh,
bit about what that
Oh,
assessment is. That would be
you're
great for everyone who doesn't know what we're thinking talking
you're
about.
you're singing you're singing from my songbook here. So needs assessment is for those who aren't familiar with learning, there's a whole science behind it. Um, there's also a lot of art behind it as well. So there's a number of really key components to that, and there's a large level needs assessment, and then there's needs analysis, and then there's role analysis, and then there's skill analysis, and then there's gap analysis, and it's really just a systematic way to approach what are we trying to do? Like where are we today? And what's the future state that we want? Okay, so I mean, you may have a rough idea of what the future state is, and I have, prior to working in corporate areas, I worked as a freelance instructional designer, so I've had this conversation with multitudes of clients, internal and external. What are you actually trying to do? And is that the right thing? What is the outcome you're looking for? The example I use a lot around that is, you have a checklist, right? Completing the checklist, not the outcome.
Mhm.
Making sure that everything, every activity on the checklist has been done correctly and completely, that is the outcome. The checklist is a tool to get you there, but your goal is the outcome. So,
Mhm.
we bring a lot of rigor as learning professionals, or at least we try to bring a lot of rigor as learning professionals around, where are we today? Where do we want to be? Is that the right where? Like, is our end goal the right end goal? Is it going to get you the outcomes you want?
Mhm.
And figuring out all of the steps in between. So, if, from the simplest example, your goal is to teach a CSR or a teller how to deposit a check. We'll use that as a super simple example. As consumers, we've all gone into a bank to try to deposit a check.
Mhm.
Everybody goes, well, it's easy. You just deposit the check. Like, well, it's not easy because first you have to greet your customer, and every bank, every brand has a different way that they handle that. The experience that they want their customer to have. You've got to authenticate your customer so that you make sure that the person in front of you is the person that they say they are. Well, there's a whole bunch of steps involved in that. Then you have to look at the check. Is it a valid check? Is the information that you need on that check the correct information? Is it in the right spaces? Is all of this sort of stuff? And not even talking about things like fraud. I'm not even, going to touch that at this point in time. Then it's okay, well, you have a system that you have to key this check into, or you have to scan the check and specific things have to happen, and you have to understand how the system works, and so on and so on and so on. And all of a sudden this, we'll just teach them how to deposit a check, becomes a laundry list of skills that they need to have, of knowledge that they need to have. And, say you have deposited a check 4,000, 5,000, 6,000, 10,000 times in your career, it's become reflexive for you. You are not the right person to be training people on that
Mhm.
because you're taking so much for granted. So I've always felt strongly as a learning professional, one of my superpowers is my ignorance. I don't know nothing about this. I don't want to know nothing about this, but you're going to teach me, and then I'm going to teach other people.
Mm. I love that. I love that concept because I feel like it applies. Everything you're talking about is so similar to like change management in terms of like some of the stuff that we do, right? Which is a different like focus, in terms of like, broadly speaking, we do things like change impact assessment to understand, what is the current state, what is the future state. But it's
Yep.
in that like next bucket where it's like, okay, we've identified that there is a particular change here. It now comes to how are we going to mitigate
How do we get
that?
there?
Is it right? Is it through learning? Is it
Yeah.
significant enough? And I love that point about like your superpower is being ignorant because I feel like and I feel like I need some change management and some learning on like or how to train other people on change management, if that makes sense.
Yep.
Because I always
100%.
get caught up. I'm actually going through a change impact assessment right now, and I don't understand. I always am so blown away by this. Like I'm like, how do you not? It's like everyone's like, oh, we don't need to worry about this. Like it's just gonna be what it is, or people will just figure it out. And I'm always like thrown off by that. I'm like, how could you think that? Like, but it's
That is a
so
red flag for me immediately. Oh, we don't need to worry about that. Okay, that is the thing I need to worry about.
right,
That is now
exactly,
my
and
number one concern.
it's wild. I mean, I have these conversations, and I'm like, I even bring up like, this is the type of stuff that we're looking for. Here's an example of like current state, like relevant to your process. Maybe you
Hmm.
you work in total rewards, and here's a difference in terms of like we're changing benefit programs from like this to this. And here's like an example of what that's going to look like for the employee. And it's like, well, there's no change for the employees. It's like, yes, maybe there is no change. Let's use an M&A as an example, right? We're acquiring a different company, different benefit plans within the current company and then the new one. And, you know, let's say there's like no change. It's like literally the same. They're like, we don't got to worry about that. I'm like, don't you think the employees want to know that? Don't we need to communicate to them that nothing is changing
100%.
because they're all thinking, is
What's
it going to
changing?
change? And
Yep.
it's like, even if there is no change, sometimes you still need to communicate that. And then, of course, there's the focus on only the negative stuff that drives me crazy. It's like, well, there's
Yeah.
no, this is going to be a good change, so we don't need to worry about that. I'm like, we could talk about good stuff too, guys.
Please, please talk about good stuff.
We don't
Always
need to
talk
just
about the
focus
good
on the
stuff.
negative stuff. It's like, well,
Yeah.
this is going to change and it's going to suck. But this stuff is, there's also good stuff, but
Yep.
we don't need to worry about that because you don't need to do anything about it. Don't worry about it. It's no, guys. Let's
It's
talk about the good stuff too.
it's the same a lot. Like there's so many parallels in learning as well where it's, oh, this is going to be challenging and oh, this is going to be this and this is going to be that and oh, people are going to resist and it's like,
Hmm.
yeah, absolutely. People are inherently resistant to change. It's completely normal. But, you know, that doesn't mean we don't do it. It
Yeah.
doesn't mean we just sit in the status quo and not go back to our toddler question of why and like why are we doing this? And that's
Right. Yeah.
that's an area that I would love to see L&D get more involved in is questioning process,
Yeah.
questioning procedures, questioning like, oh, so we do it like this, but why do we do it like this? You
Well,
know,
exactly. Yeah.
I've
Yeah.
I've worked for some really old organizations that have been around, centuries. And it's, well, okay, well, because we've always done it that way. So hold on a second here.
Mhm.
Why? Like, tell me, like, we've always done it that way is not a good reason to do something. And
Right.
I love it when L&D can get involved early in processes, in change, and put a lens on it that is often missed, particularly around systems. If I never had to design systems training again for the rest of my career, I'd be like the happiest little learning nerd on the face of the planet.
Yeah.
And I shouldn't have to design systems training because modern systems should be intuitive.
Yeah. Yeah. Exactly. And I feel like it's the same kind of. It's like empowering the folks, to like us to kind of be at that table to
Yeah,
start to provide some guidance before the requirements are set. Because a lot of the times it's like, this is the change. I just need you to train them on it, or I just need you to communicate about it, or make sure that they're able to be as proficient as
yeah,
possible. Whether that's how we include training, how do we include comms, whatever we do. But this is it. There's no change in what the future state is. It is what it is. But it would be great to be consulted to then when there's actually appetite to design what that strategy is, to have experts like ourselves at the table to say, you know what, this might not be the way to solve this problem,
Yeah.
or in order to do this effectively, to actually get people to change that behavior that you're looking for them to do, it's actually more complicated or complex than
That
you think it is. And
you've
it's going to
you've
cost you a
missed a
lot more,
couple. You've
right?
missed a couple key points in your rollout here.
Because they
When
just don't think
change
about
is,
it.
yeah, and they shouldn't. It's not their
Right. It's
area of
not
expertise,
a
and
100%. It's not a bash. It's like
yeah,
you can't be an expert at everything. You just need to bring people with the expertise at the table to
100%.
provide that. It's the cognitive diversity at the table that is
Yeah,
key for strategy. And I feel like it's just, well, we need to, it's the financial element of it that kind of drives
yeah,
a lot of the decisions. And I think as I'm starting to see more and more projects, you start to realize exactly what you're saying. It's like the gap is not in effective change management. The gap is that change management and learning and all of these people experts are not at the table early enough to flag some of these red
yeah,
flags because it's basically doomed right after it gets out off of the board strategy table, and it comes down to start being executed. You're like, this is not going to work,
yeah,
but we're going to do it anyway. And
yeah.
so
Well,
you
we've
just got to
committed
go
too
through it.
much. It's sunk
Yeah.
cost fallacy. We've committed too much to
Yeah.
this already. All right,
We told
it's going
shareholders
forward. Yep.
it's happening. We're just going to have
It's
to, buckle up and hope for the best.
it's fascinating to me how, a lot of this happens, and I think through to, things that I've learned throughout my career, and kind of the evolution of my thinking. And when I started off as a young learning designer, I was like, I'm going to put together this e-learning and it's going to change the world, and it's going to, make people's socks roll up and down, and it's going to be so cool. And early on, I found that, I was designing a lot for myself. I was designing to impress myself, and put out the coolest new thing using the newest learning technology, using the going to date myself here, using Flash, or,
My God, is
that
that a
sort of
dated
stuff.
thing? Oh my God, I don't think that's dated, but maybe I'm
Yeah,
old.
it's yeah, it's no longer
Is it
supported.
really?
Hasn't been for a while. Sorry, man.
Oh geez. All right. No, that's how you find out
So
it's
like
toxic.
using that sort of stuff, and the more and more I worked, either in freelance or in corporate areas, the more I came to the conclusion that while the asset is important, while the words on the screen or the words that a facilitator is delivering, or like while all of that is important, it's the emotional impact that it has with people. It's the why for them. I mean, as learning professionals, we're really good at telling people what to do and how to do it and when to do it and often where to do it if that's applicable, but we often miss the why. And I see that happening in change management sometimes too, where it's, we're doing this great change and here's what it's going to do and here's how it's going to make you happy. Okay, but why are we making this change? Like, are we making this
Yeah.
change because a system has been retired? Are we making this change because, from a strategy point of view, we're moving in a different direction? And those whys often get missed. The number of times I have either had clients or partners come to me and say, "Hey, we need a learning on this," and my first question's been, "Okay, great. What's your business objectives?" And they're like, "Oh, I've got the napkin here somewhere." I'm like, "Oh, okay. Let's talk a bit
Right.
more about getting something a little more formal together. Because how are we going to know if we have succeeded in whatever learning asset you're asking me to put together if we don't know how we're going to measure it from the get go? And in order to measure it, we have to know where, just to echo myself from before, you have to know where you're starting and you have to know where you're going to end up and how you're going to measure that journey.
Is always fascinating to me because there's no limit of like this concept of like monitoring performance and like assessing whether you meet big, like everyone talks about it. It's
Yeah.
like everyone says it, even executives talk about it all the time. Like, are we meeting the business objectives? But it's like, to your point, I have yet to be part of a project where we have defined business objectives down to a team individual level that we can actually like monitor and say, did we actually achieve what it is that we achieve? And there are schools of thought in change management, I'm sure, in learning around like it's too complex to measure whether we are proficient or they were proficient or not. I'm like, what? Of course there is. I mean, look, we're not going to get. I think this idea of perfection is something we need to like, get away from. It's like we're solving for the 80%. Really, at the end of
Yep.
the day, there's 10% that just started, don't know what's going on. There's 10% that literally know exactly what's going on. They couldn't care less, and we're not really worried about them. But for the 80%, we really need to understand is everything that we're doing actually getting through to them? Like,
Is it
I was
actually
just
going to
having this
help?
conversation. I just
Yep.
had this conversation like earlier this week. It was like, I feel like we send these things out and I have like zero visibility as to if anyone's ever read it or like have ever used it or the system that we're introduced this enhancement has it actually saved anyone time? Are people calling more into the help desk to
Yep.
ask questions about this topic or less? But nobody seems to like care about it. It's just like we're just going to launch it because it sounds like a really good idea, but we don't actually know if it solves a problem that we've been trying to solve. And to your point, even if you do ask somebody, it's like when you're down the road, right? Like you're months in and you just step back and you're just like, you get somebody new coming in and be like, what is this actually like supposed to do for us? And everyone's like, um, that's a really good. I feel like there was a
Good
document somewhere
question.
that talked about that. And I'm like,
Yep.
and then we're like, oh, I don't, did we even do that? And it's just like, and it's just or it's too high level the metrics. I've seen that
Yep.
too. It's like, oh, we're tracking metrics. But I'm like, and it's like turnover. And I'm
Hmm.
like, okay, but that could be because of so many different
There's
things.
so many levers. The trap that
you
we
know?
that we fall into in learning when it comes to measurement a lot of time, everybody's familiar with what I call smile sheets. You go to a
Yeah.
facilitated session. Did you like the session? Do you feel
Yeah.
like it's applicable to your job? Was the facilitator engaging? You know, that's what some people think of learning measurement.
Mhm.
No, that doesn't tell me anything. Like as a learning professional, as somebody who's deep into this stuff, that doesn't tell me anything other than the quality of the facilitator. That's great because that's important to know. You want to know that people are delivering the stuff well and that they're engaging and all of that sort of stuff. There's some stuff in there, is this applicable to my job? That tells you whether you've got the right audience in there or not. Will you apply this to your job? How will you apply this to your job next week?
Mhm.
Follow up 3 months later. Did you apply this to your job? How did you
Yeah.
apply this to your job? What impact has it had? 3 months after that,
Oh yeah. I
6 months
remember this
after that,
concept.
it's a lot
Yeah.
of work. It's
Yeah.
not hard. It's not hard. Like I don't want anybody to think that it's hard work. It is
Yeah.
a lot of work.
Right.
It's having systems in place that allow you to do that. One of the things we talk about in learning a lot is time to proficiency. So we do a
Mm.
lot of onboarding training, and I have a whole rant about onboarding training.
Oh
We
yeah.
we we do a lot of onboarding training, and one of the metrics is time to proficiency,
Right.
which a lot of people measure as time to I don't have to have somebody else supervising this person,
Okay.
and
Yeah, I
they
was
can
gonna ask
fly
like
on
how
their
they.
own. They're the
Right.
bird who
Okay.
has left the nest. I don't have to worry about them, cashing
Is that
checks. I
just an
don't have to
arbitrary
worry.
number? Is that just like an arbitrary,
Well,
like, oh, it's like after 3 months, or is there like actual metrics behind
fre-
like what they need to
frequently it's
achieve?
an arbitrary number.
Okay.
And
Okay.
it's highly variable. And you were talking about, the 80%, and that's what we have to aim for a lot of the time. Because, your top 10% of performers, regardless of whether we're talking about change management or learning or communications, your top 10%, you could give them a potato as a learning asset and they will do well because
Yeah.
they're high performers. They will figure it out and they're
Yeah.
fantastic people. And unfortunately, your bottom 10% who are a bad fit
Mhm.
for the role and have huge skill gaps, you could give them the Cadillac of learning solutions and they're still going to struggle. And it's
Yeah.
through no fault of them as human beings or anything like that. They may just not be a good fit for the role. There may be too many skill gaps. They may be unsupported.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. There's just
There's
a limitation on
there's
both
just a
sides that you can.
limitation there, and
Yeah. Yeah.
there's no judgment involved in this. But you want to focus on the 80%, and you want to focus on what they're doing 80% of their day. You can't
Hmm.
focus on edge cases, right? There
Yeah.
are, in every job, in every industry, there are a million and one edge cases. And
Hmm.
I would need people in classroom 24/7, 365 for 6 years in order
Yeah.
to cover all the edge cases. And that, as
Yeah.
much as that might be fun, it's not feasible.
Yeah.
So it's
Exactly. Yeah.
really important to try and capture that those key things. What are you going to be doing 80% of the time? And that goes back to our skill analysis and our job analysis. What are you going to be doing 80% of the time, and how quickly can we get you
Hmm.
80% capable of that? And that's your
Yeah.
time to
Yeah.
proficiency. And
Yeah.
I love working with contact centers because
Hmm.
of call routing,
Yes. Yes.
right?
I
So
worked
you
in the call
can,
center as well.
yeah, you
And
can
it's like,
guarantee they're only going to get X type of
yeah,
call. And so that
the
gives you
data.
flexibility
There's
and
so much
scaffolding
data.
and lets you skill them up. And call centers are fantastic for
You're
data.
so right.
Love them.
It's like literally, you can literally track your effectiveness so easily because they
Yeah,
track literally everything, and
very,
you can
very easily.
segment. Oh, it's so
But
good. You
but
can run
but
pilots so
face to
fast. It's
face,
great.
like face
It's
to face,
hard.
and how do
Yeah.
you do that? And how do you do that for
Yeah.
leaders? What makes an
Yeah.
effective
And
leader?
I'm gonna
How do
say
you
something kind of
measure?
crazy. Yeah. How do you, right? Like
Yeah.
that's always I remember in the call center I used to do call quality. Literally like my one of my favorite jobs aside from Canadian Tire, that's still my favorite garden center all the way. But the call center, I just loved it because it was like I did call quality. So I'd listen to the agents and I'd give like a report to their leaders to say,
Mhm.
here's some areas of improvement. And I was like coming from the branch, I was like, man, this is so valuable. Like I literally they don't even know I'm listening. They don't
Yep.
even know because it's all random. And
Yep.
so it could be just like a call that they were fantastic in. It could be a call that they were terrible in, but they don't know if I'm listening to it because. And I was like, man, if only we had something like that at the branch where you would be able to know. Honestly, not to my benefit because I was pretty terrible at it as a teller, as most of my colleagues will know. I almost got fired from from people before I had my career because I was so bad. I literally couldn't balance to save my life. Like, I
There's
could
a
never.
skill gap. There's a
I
skill
don't.
gap right there.
It was yeah. It was not. I'm not a terrible employee.
Yep.
I'm very good, but there was definitely a mismatch in my skills. I was
Yep.
not equipped for that level of customer service or apparently balancing cash. But I think I was going to say something like crazy, and I've been thinking about this for a while. And I would love to take on a project, and as part of my contract, it be performance based. I'm like,
Mm.
you know what? I will guarantee you that I need to, meet whatever these metrics are for me by the end of the contract, whatever, a month, 2 months. If I don't hit it, it's free, or we start to discount it based on like my performance level. I'd be willing to do that. The one caveat would be I'm like, when I say we're going to do something, or we're going to communicate in a certain way, we're going to train somebody in a certain way, or we're going to do it, you have to agree. You have to listen to me. But I promise you that if we don't hit the targets, you won't have to pay me the full price. I'm okay with that. And I'd be willing to do that, honestly, because I think the other struggle, and as I'm sure we're coming into these stakeholder groups, we're talking to them, we're giving them advice, but then they're like, you know what? It's okay. Instead of doing all of that, let's just give them an e-learning. And I'm like, okay, great. Well, that's not going to do anything. So don't come to me, a month later when it launches and be like, it's not working. Like I thought we got change management in, or I thought we got learning in for a reason. It's like, well, you didn't listen to me, so it's not my problem. So it's like as long as you listen to me, I will put my money where my mouth is. And I honestly wouldn't mind doing that, at least for like a pilot, just to try
I
it, just to
I
see.
think that's phenomenal. I've had a number of projects where I've been, for varying reasons, backed into a corner and
Mhm.
told, this is what we need. This was promised to an auditor, or this was promised to an exec, and therefore this is what you need to produce. And
Yeah.
I have been very upfront and said, I will produce it, but I want you to know very clearly, and this is my documentation, this is not going to have the impact you're asking for.
Hmm.
And we're going to be having this conversation again in a year's time.
Yeah, we're
And
gonna.
when we have this conversation again in a year's time, I'm going to bring up this
Yeah,
email and I'm going to forward it to you.
yeah,
And, like, because in learning, there's always work. There's always more work than
yeah.
there are bodies to do it. And I think that's universal in life. There's more work than there are people to do it. And we're always trying to find more efficient ways to do things. I don't have time for activities.
Yeah.
I'm not interested in doing activities. I don't find them fulfilling. It's not
Hmm.
where I can bring the most value. I want outcomes.
Hmm.
I want to
Yes.
change how things go. I want to change how people think.
Hmm.
I want to build better leaders. I want to
Yeah.
build better customer service people. And I want to support them in doing that. And some of that falls inside learning and some of it
Hmm.
falls outside learning. One of the things I've talked a lot about with a lot of my colleagues and a lot of people in the learning space is we talk a lot about performance outcomes and learning objectives in learning. So, by the end of this course, you will be able to blah, 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 blah. We
Right.
talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
all the time. And that's fantastic. That's absolutely great. Super important for us to do. What we don't talk about enough is performance inputs.
Okay,
In
explain
order
that to
to
me a little bit.
take
I,
this
I thought I might
course,
have. Yeah, you have
you
to.
need to be
Okay.
able to do XYZ. You
I
must
like
be
that.
this tall to get on this ride.
Right.
Like at an amusement park. And it comes back to what we were talking about the skill mismatch. People have said to varying degrees, oh, I hate working with the bank. Like customers have said, oh, I hate going to a bank. It's very impersonal. It's this, it's that, it's the other thing. And I have jokingly said a number of times, stop hiring finance people to do customer service.
Right.
People don't get into finance because they love people, generally speaking.
Yeah,
You get
I
into
think that's
finance because you
fair.
love numbers,
Yeah,
because you
and
love like
money.
and
You
all of
love
that sort of
money.
stuff.
You know.
I can teach somebody how to balance their till. I
Yeah.
can teach somebody how to do an authentication. I can teach somebody how to deposit a check. All things that I can teach. I can't as easily teach people to care about other people. I can't
Yeah.
teach them
Absolutely.
empathy. I can help
Yeah.
them learn how they
Right.
show empathy, how they show up for customers, how they engage with customers. I can help them learn that. But if you don't care about people, I can't teach you to care about people. Like it's kind
Yeah.
of a fundamental thing. And
Yeah. Yeah.
that's what I mean around performance inputs. We need the right people doing the jobs. And that's not to say that they can't grow and do other jobs. And that's not to say that they can't grow into their role and
Hmm.
develop and build skills. Nobody's born a perfect CSR or a teller or learning professional or change management professional. There's a lot of learning that happens in experience and growth. But you need that foundation. You need those foundational pieces. And I can teach a good human, like a good, empathetic, curious, humble human who shows up authentically. I can teach them anything. I can teach them, how to presumably do surgery, although I don't know how to do that myself. Like, but it's good
But you, yeah,
people.
you can. Yeah. Yeah. If you
Good
get the
people
right
can do
fit.
any job if you get the right
Exactly.
fit. And
Yeah.
that's where I go on and on and on about performance inputs. Like, let's make sure we're
Yeah.
hiring the right people, not
Exactly.
just bums in seats.
And that's always the thing that gets neglected. Yeah. Right. Like, I mean, I had this conversation on another podcast with a man, Josh Hill, and he does a lot of hiring work. And it's the idea of finding the right fit for the right seat at the right time, and
That's a
it's so many
skill.
people ignore it. Yeah.
Yep.
So many people ignore it. Right. And he works primarily with startups because at the end of the day, they are the ones that have the most to lose.
Hmm.
It's not like the big corporations, like where
Yep.
if it doesn't work out, it's like whatever, we'll just hire somebody else. But with limited resources as a startup, they're like, when we hire somebody, it's got to be right. Like I'm
Yeah.
willing to wait 8 months, a year to find the right person for this job. Obviously, I would like it to be sooner, but if we hire them and it's wrong, huge
It's
impact.
so
And so that's
expensive.
kind of where we focus. Yeah, and it's like, yeah, exactly, exactly. And then the worry, and then you have to like train somebody else. It's just like all these different things, and it's like all of these like kind of like quote unquote boring enablers are always the things that get almost like missed universally. Like pick any business situation,
Hmm.
and it's always the enabler. It's like AI, you know. It's like, oh my god, like this is great. Let's use AI. We're gonna streamline everything. It's like our data's crap. Doesn't matter. Let's just keep going. Let's
Yeah.
just do it, and it'll be fine, right? Like it's AI, you know? And so, but then you realize it's like, oh, you know, it's not really doing anything the way that we just not doing what we wanted it to do because, you know, we didn't do the fundamental like enablers. And so, like,
Are we
thinking
ready
about it,
for AI?
are we ready for any of it? You know,
Yeah.
anything changes, regardless of what it is. It's like, are we thinking about what we need to do to enable, you know, the change from happening? And are we doing what we need to do to enable the learning to happen, you know, effectively? I think is where you're getting at. And I completely agree. It's like, I just did a post on this too. It's like, let's focus on the boring stuff, guys. Like, those are the things that actually make the difference. And the sexy stuff will come
Logistics.
later. You know,
Yeah.
it's like we're all focused on the sexy stuff, but it's the boring stuff that gets you there, guys.
It's the boring stuff that makes it happen. The number of times I've had
Yeah,
somebody say, "Hey, we need a performance support tool or a job aid on this." I'm like, "You
yeah,
mean this one that got sent out 6 weeks ago?
yeah,
Is that the one that you're?" Because we've already built that.
yeah,
Here you go.
yeah,
And they're like, "Oh, this is
yeah,
fantastic. I didn't realize this was here." Like L&D, we are our own worst enemy when it comes to communicating the work that we're doing and making sure that people have access to all of it. Like
mm,
it's really an area that we need to develop, and particularly when it comes to supporting people post onboarding. Like we do a great
yeah,
job. Large corporations in general, L&D in general, do a really good job at onboarding people because you captured them
yeah,
at the perfect moment in time when you know exactly what they need to learn.
hmm,
Where we fall down is after that, like
right,
every moment that follows that. So if you've got, say you came in and you're a CSR and you've been a CSR for 10 or 15 years because that's what you love doing and you love working with people and you build those relationships. And I know in a lot of smaller branches, even some of the medium-sized and larger branches, you get your regular customers coming in and you build these relationships, and it's really, really amazing and really, really lovely and tremendously fulfilling work. If the last time that person had a learning intervention was 15 years ago, we are doing that person a disservice
yeah,
because there's so much more to learn. There's so many
yeah,
more new things that they can pick up, and selfishly, there's so much I can learn from them.
mm,
Like how do we
yeah.
use what they have learned to bring up the next generation of
I love
CSRs?
that. That's a great concept. I haven't even thought about too. And a lot of that stuff I feel like it's pushed down to, you know, managers, but they're not trained to like identify and figure out like what the right learning process needs to be for the individual. So it just never happens. You know, it's
Like
just like
frontline
work put
managers
on
are
the
just
employee,
Yeah, frontline
you know?
managers are just overwhelmed. We ask so much of them all the
Yeah.
time. They're subjected to 465,000 changes a week. They've got, an inbox filled up above and beyond their head. They,
Right.
they've got a bunch of people reporting to them, some of whom are fantastic, some of whom are developing, some of whom, maybe shouldn't be in the role. They've got customers out the door. Like it's tough. It is
Yeah.
100% tough. And as a learning person, like I'm always like, well, we just need time for them to sit
Yeah.
down and do the learning. But where do we take that time? Where do we take that
Right.
time from? Like, do we say, oh, sorry, customer, you've got to wait an extra 15 minutes because so and so has training? That's not right. Customer comes first.
Yeah.
Customer's right in front of you. The customer needs to be your priority. So how do we fit little bite-sized things in the moment? How do we call out informal learning moments? How do we help people understand new things and build new things? And that's a lot of what my last role was finding ways to do reinforcement in the moment, learning in the flow of work through a variety of different tools, but really reimagining what learning is beyond just onboarding, beyond classroom sessions, because the pandemic absolutely killed that. Beyond just a virtual class. Oh, okay, you're going to be in this virtual class for 3 hours. I'm a learning professional who loves to learn. You tell me I've got a 3 hour virtual class to attend, my eyes are going to glass over.
Yeah,
It's like
I know, right?
that's
It's
just
just
wild. Like even an hour. Like
yeah,
I don't have an extra hour in my day
I
to
know. And I
be
tried
doing something like
desperately
that.
to
Yeah, and
try
you
and like
want to.
attend these
Like
webinars,
people
and you
want to.
want to,
You're hungry for
and
it. So
you're just
that's why I
like,
love
oh, but
things
I
like podcasts. I love
right.
things
Well,
like little plug there. Love
a
things
little
like
bit.
little 5 minute videos, little
Yeah,
five
yeah,
minute knowledge bites, even
yes,
45 seconds. Like
yeah,
honestly, one of the things that I've always found really, really interesting is the idea of just-in-time inventory.
yes, yeah,
So if we're talking
100%.
like supply chains and supply chain management and all of that sort of thing,
Right.
one of the things that was huge in the 90s and early 2000s, supply chain management, just-in-time inventories allow for
Mhm.
smaller footprints in retail spaces, and what you need shows up in the morning that you need it.
Yeah,
I wish learning could be like that. I
absolutely.
wish
Because
I wish learning could be, hey, I've got a conversation on a HELOC.
yeah,
Um, or I've got a conversation on a TFSA or a RIF.
yeah, exactly.
Give me
Oh
the
man, I remember
411 on that.
certified checks. I
Yeah,
was like certified checks you see once every like 8 months, and
exactly.
or traveler's checks. Do they even do either of those? I don't even know anymore. Probably not. Now I'm dating myself. I don't think they do either of those things.
I don't know.
So,
I don't know. Never been a branch
but
person,
I
and
but I remember being like, I'm like, how do I
how do
do
we
this? Like,
just
it's
in
like a
time?
certified check. It's like I use your check. What's going on? It's just in time,
I
100%.
would
And
I
it's
would
I
love
think
that.
and I think as we're talking, like we talk about AI, and I feel like we have to think differently about everything that we used to know in terms of like, and everything that we used to do about change management and helping people transition in the context of the environment that we're in today, which to
Yep.
your earlier point, 456,000 emails, you're probably not exaggerating. It's probably exactly that amount. And, but what do we do when there's a change? What's the always happens a communication through an
Yep.
email. And
And
we've
it
been
just
doing it
throw it
ever
on the
since I started
pile.
change. Yeah, and it's just like, okay, keep going. It's like, did you not see we communicated it to you guys? Did you not see that? It's like, no, I had like 1,000
There's
other
another things.
emails, and I had like two employees get into a fight, in the lunchroom
Yep.
that I got to deal with, and there's all these
And a
different things that
customer
I got to worry about,
screaming, and
you know.
this,
And
or
so
my
no, I
branch is
didn't
on
see,
fire, or
you know,
yeah.
I didn't
Oh,
see this new process to deposit a check. I'm sorry, I
yeah.
missed that.
I didn't see it amongst the 55 other new processes that I'm facing today. Um,
Exactly. It's like so finding ways to like proactively like trigger folks where it makes sense.
yeah,
And I think AI can maybe help do that, and delivering, that type of it just in time sort of learning as you're in the application. It's like, popping that type of stuff up for you so that it's like walking you through some of these processes and steps. And that's where I would love to see kind of AI go in a way that I feel like can help mitigate some of the capacity constraint that we have right now, which is like it's just being too much. It's so
yeah.
hard for me to remember something that's not going to happen every second of every day. So it needs to be just in time. That's the only way around it. But how do you do that?
Well, I
It's
mean,
the
it's
challenge.
it's it's a huge challenge because it requires a lot of one. It requires a huge library of content,
Mhm.
and in order to have a huge library of content, you've got to maintain that library of content, which means anytime a change happens, you have to dig into your library and make sure that you have updated everything because the only thing worse than, a just-in-time learning is a just-in-time learning that's wrong.
Yeah,
And so you
that
have to
is very true.
maintain that all the time. And then that digs into the other part, which is a lot of where a lot of my consulting career has been around is why is this process so complicated?
Mhm.
Like, why do we need 75 steps in this process? And why, like, do all 75 of these steps bring value?
Yeah,
And what value do they bring? And is that value commensurate with the number of steps that there are? And just
exactly.
digging into that, and that's where we dig deeper beyond learning, beyond change management, beyond all of those sorts of concerns, and really start looking into, process and policy. And hey, we're I work in banking. It's a very heavily regulated industry. I did a lot of work for the Ontario Lottery Gaming Commission. One of their taglines is the only thing more heavily regulated than us is nuclear power. I'm used to regulatory. I get it, and it's there to protect consumers, and it is super important, and it is super valuable. But are we doing these for our customers and for our learners and for our change partners, or are we doing these things to them?
Hmm.
And having spoken with a lot of learners and a lot of people in the field and a lot of people in the line, their felt sense often is that the change is not for them or the learning is not for them. It is being done to them.
Hmm.
And I get it. It's a tough world. It's a tough old
Hmm.
world. It's not going to get any simpler. Like there's this great saying, the world is more complex than it has ever been, and it
Hmm.
is moving faster than it ever has. And it will never be moving as slowly as it is right now or as simple as it is right now ever again.
Yes.
And
Yeah.
these two
Yep.
things are true at the same time. And so, like, exciting times we're living in, terrifying
It
times we're
is.
living in, but
Yep.
it's only going to get faster.
Right. And I think and that is something that we've talked about here too around, you know, and I like how you put it. It's this, it's so eloquent that that idea of, it is the simplest today. It's consistently getting more complex, more uncertain as things. I mean, the environment that we're in is literally bonkers right now, and I feel like every minute of every day we add additional stress and anxiety and uncertainty, and that will not stop. And to your point, it's like this is the moment where it's the simplest. So if you think it's hard now, just it's going to get worse.
Wait till
So
tomorrow.
wait till tomorrow, right? And I feel like we don't want to end this on like kind of
On a down.
a downer. So we gotta talk about like what people can do because there are ways to,
Absolutely.
you know. Do you want
Absolutely.
you want to
So,
go? Yeah. What would
yeah,
you say to leaders?
okay, so I'm going to commit a little bit of L&D, learning and development blasphemy here. I'm not a
Okay.
framework guy. I
I'm not a
don't
framework guy either.
necessarily ascribe to models and that sort of thing. My frameworks and models are great when they're used properly in support of behaviors and skills.
Hmm.
So if I had one thing that I could ask of every leader, every and that whether you're leading 1,000 people or whether you're leading change or whether you're just, a human doing the best that you can. Sorry, not to imply that executives aren't human. Not at all the message I'm trying to leave you with. Be curious. Curiosity will take you far. Like just be curious and always ask why and never take anything for granted. And remember, at the end of the day, we are all human. We are all doing the best that we can and have empathy and give people
Yes.
grace. Like
Yes.
as much as, you work in a corporate environment, you work with clients, you live in the world as it is, as much as you don't understand how some decisions get made, as much as you don't understand why people are behaving the way that they are or doing the things that they do, with a few small exceptions, don't ascribe malice to what is often ignorance or outside pressures that you're not seeing. So be curious about those things and give people grace. And for the love of everything, give yourself grace as well. As
I love.
somebody who is harder
Yeah.
on himself than I'm on anyone else,
Yes.
that is a reminder for me as much as anyone. So be curious and have empathy. Hold space for our fellow humans.
I love that. Honestly, that's such a great way to close off. I think empathy, curiosity is something that I think everyone can do right now. And I think that will help just to, not get so frustrated as, things become challenging.
Yeah.
Lead with curiosity first, and not, defensiveness or anything like
Yep.
that. And you know what? That gives you a little bit of fun.
Yep.
I know for me, when I've been, working on a change for months and we've been communicating nonstop, you know, many different channels. And, as we're about to go live, we get some type of feedback around, I didn't know this change was happening. I'm like, how did that happen? I'm very curious. I just need to know. Like, I need to understand. Like, were you gone for like 6 months,
Yep.
or did you not get any of this stuff, or did you get it and like, I need to know. Like,
Yep.
I need to, like, it
How did this
actually is
happen?
hurting me. Like, I need to
Without
know.
judgment. Like,
No judgment.
yep.
I need to know because I'm like, what did I do that missed you?
What did I miss?
Yeah. I need to know how that
And then
happened.
you
Like, it's
adjust your
just so
process,
fascinating.
and you adjust your process, you
Yeah.
adjust your methodology, you make a note
Yeah.
for yourself, you learn from that
Right.
experience. I'm
But everyone else is hearing it. It's like, oh, like, how
I,
could they not
yeah,
know? I'm like, I need to know how you
yeah.
didn't see this.
How did we get here? What did we miss? And how do we make sure that it doesn't happen again? And like
Right. And that's
I have
the
made
beauty
so
of
many
it.
mistakes in my life, like just so many mistakes. And I am not interested in making those mistakes again. I have a whole passel of new mistakes that I need to make that
Yeah, exactly.
I don't have time for repeats. It's
Exactly.
like, just let's keep pushing forward. Let's be curious. Let's be authentic.
Yeah.
It actually comes to, the we were talking earlier about what book I might recommend. There's a
Yes.
book by a guy, and I want to pull up his name, Ryan Holiday, called Ego is the Enemy.
Yeah.
And that is what I have always ascribed to, is it doesn't matter where the idea came from. Best idea wins.
Yeah. Exactly. And I think early in my career, I was always like, yeah, I think like I was not okay with that, right? I was
It
I was like,
it's an
I need it to
adjustment.
be mine, you know? Like if it's not mine, I'm like mad about it.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's like, when you try to get there, and I'm by no means perfect about it, because often people are looking to you for your expertise. Being
Mhm.
in the fields that we are, being at the point in our careers that we are, people are looking to you for expertise, and that's great. And we can share our expertise and we can share our experience. But that doesn't mean that we've got all the good ideas and we are the only fountain of good ideas. There are
Exactly.
ideas will come from the unlikeliest of places, and you have to be open to
Yes.
that. And to do that,
Yes.
you got to take ego out of the equation. And I know for a lot
Yeah.
of leaders, humility is a really hard thing.
It's very hard. I get that. I can understand that, but it's so true. All the best ideas that I've ever come out of the work that I've done have not been mine. So, but it's giving the people the space to
Yep.
feel that they're psychologically safe enough to share
Oh,
an idea that, and then, they'll bring it up and I'm like, that's a fantastic, like I literally a couple of weeks, like this week, we were talking about, we're working on an acquisition and I was like just talking to somebody from that firm and I said, look, we're dealing with this change. I need some help. Like, how should we like communicate this in a way? It's like, one of the things that worked really well in the past. And she gave me an idea and I'm like, that's great. Let's do that. And it's not mine, but I'm like, yeah, let's definitely include that. It's like sometimes being a good change manager, and I'm sure as a learning expert, you're leading with that empathy and that
yep.
curiosity, and you're creating an open space for people to share their feedback openly with you
Yep.
because that's the gold, really. Like,
Mhm.
it's like all of these tools and these frameworks, and it's like do these change assessments, all this stuff, and they're great. I do them all the time. But the real value in being able to input stuff into those things to help dictate what your strategy is comes from just the one-on-one
Yeah.
conversations, which is, really just like me reaching out to people and being like, hey, I'm new. Let's like catch up and let me hear about your experience. And they tell you stuff, and it's what they tell you that informs your strategy. And it's going to land way better than anything you could have cooked up in a boardroom. And we ignore that stuff. It's like, oh no, we got this. It's like, no, just have conversations.
See,
And they're
that's
the odd, they're the customer at the end of the
yep.
day.
And that's ignorance is your superpower. Hey, I'm new here.
Yeah, there you go. Hey,
Hey, I know
maybe,
nothing.
maybe
I
I
know
got
nothing
something.
about this. Tell me about it. Help me understand.
Yes.
Tell me more about that.
Yes.
Oh, that's really interesting.
Yeah.
Tell me more. Like, those are my consulting questions. One,
Yeah.
because it gets people talking further and you gather more. Two, because it forces you to keep your mouth shut
Yes.
and not jump right to solution. And three,
Mhm.
it buys you time to think.
Yes. I
So
love
it's
that.
a
I need
super powerful question.
I
That's
love
really
yeah, I
great.
love that.
Tell me more. I'd like to hear
Yeah.
more about that.
Yeah. And that's something we can do right away.
Yep.
It's like I think at the end of the day, you always like are thinking about what am I going to say next? It's like, tell me more about that, or like, can you explain that a little bit more for me? And they'll go off, or even silence sometimes is super powerful. It just like, and I'm very hard at doing that, as you probably have guessed, and everyone who's ever listened to this podcast knows. But when you do it, it's amazing. And I do it consciously all the time. And then you're like, then they keep going. You're like, oh damn, this is the secret sauce for sure.
It's a
So
sales technique, right? Like
it really
I learned the
is.
power of silence by building sales training. And
Yeah,
when you
yeah,
see that, and so it's another thing that I've added to my toolkit. And that comes back to,
yeah,
digging good ideas out from other people and all of that sort of stuff.
yeah,
It doesn't need to come to me, or it doesn't need to come
yeah,
from me, but if it comes from somebody else, it's going in my toolkit.
yeah.
Because
Exactly.
I'm going to use it the next time or the next time, or even if I don't
Absolutely.
use it for 20 projects,
Yeah.
my toolkit is now bigger.
I've got this little book that I carry around, this little tiny book, and every time someone says something, or like there's an approach that I like was brand new to me that I never like would have thought, I just kind of always will write it down in this book. And I found myself going back and I'd be like, oh my God, like I remember when this moment happened. And it's so filled. And I'm like, oh my God, like it's amazing how much like value can come from just having conversations just
Reflection.
randomly. Not for, yeah, it has nothing to do with, oh, this meeting is about this topic that we're going to talk about. All of these insights have come from just like coffee chats, or like we're in a meeting for something and we're talking about something else. But just like that, this conversation has been literally just oodles and oodles of like oodles and oodles. I've never really said that out loud before, but I think I really like it. I'm going to keep using that, honestly.
It's got a nice
Um,
rhythm to it.
but oodles and oodles. I love that. That's literally going to go on some type of clip, I feel like. We have had such a great conversation. Not that I was
Thank
expecting
you.
anything less. It's
It's
been,
been great.
honestly, I feel like we could have talked for like 3 hours, to be honest, and we probably almost did. But I want to thank you, Sean, for taking the time out and kind of having this conversation with me. Super valuable to get your insights on the learning side. Learning and change management is so parallel. There are two sides of the same coin. It's or the opposite sides of the same coin. And so it's great to kind of hear your perspective, and also really nice to hear it's shared perspectives on both of our ends. It makes me
Mhm.
feel like I'm heard and seen. So I want to thank you for
100%.
taking the time.
Appreciate it, and thank you for having me. It's been a pleasure to reconnect with you. It's been a while since we worked together, and as you said, seeing that other people have the same challenges
Yeah,
it's both terrifying and comforting.
I love that. It's so true. And with that, we're just going to say bye to everybody. Until next month, we'll be back with another episode of Reroute Reflections. It's kind of key takeaways. Really, it's lead with curiosity, lead with empathy, and, accountability at the end of the day. We talked a little bit about that as well. So, the three things to keep top of mind. Sean, again, thank you for taking the time out to be with us today, and to everyone else. And remember, don't be afraid to reroute. Bye, everybody.